Yeah.
Leader. I was a preacher of the gospel. This was my first calling, and it still remains my greatest commitment. You know, actually, all that I do in civil rights, I do because I consider it a part of my ministry. I have no other ambitions in life but to achieve excellence in the Christian ministry. I don't plan to do anything but remain a preacher. And what I'm doing in this struggle, along with many others, grows out of my feeling that the preacher must be concerned about the whole man. Martin Luther King Jr. Yo, what's up? What's going on? Welcome to the sit down. I'm Superstar. It's my man Mo. It's my dude Kid K of Kid K Productions. Thank you for joining us. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and we gonna get right into it, man. I'm about to release my new single entitled "The Culture," and we just gonna sit down and go through it and tell you what inspired this particular song and talk about everything around it, my mental state, everything. So without further ado, I'm gonna turn this over to my man Mo.
What's going on, y'all? Peace. First and foremost, let me say I appreciate the opportunity to actually sit here and dissect this song that you're putting out leading up to your project.
Yes, sir.
I have a two-part question for you.
Okay.
First and foremost, why hip-hop? Why did you use that as your means of transportation to get to your destination? Second part, how would you define the culture?
Hip-hop. Why hip-hop? For me, hip-hop has allowed me to be able to say what I really want to say and really not be judged, right? Because hip hop, its original base was so raw. Its original art form was so raw. And when I say original art form, I'm talking about pop. Oh, let's take it all the way back, NWA. You know what I'm saying? Jam Master, like we were able to say, and I say we because this answers the second part of your culture, your question about the culture. We were able to say, and we're still able to say things that I can't get in the pulpit and say a lot of this.
Okay.
But I can get on the mic and say all of it. And it's better received in the studio than it is in the pulpit.
Okay.
And so hip hop has afforded me the luxury of being able to say my raw emotions and not feel bad about it.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Not feel insecure about it either.
So how does that actually translate over to Sunday when you're in the pulpit? When you're actually aggressively, because you have an aggressive approach, aggressive tone.
Yeah.
You're naturally aggressive.
Yeah.
When you're in the studio on a Saturday, but then you're in the pulpit on a Sunday, how does that actually translate over to the actual congregation when they hear I would say frustration, and just how you feel at that present time? This doesn't sound like Deacon Just, so forth and so on.
First of all, I'm a man.
Okay.
So I struggle with everything other men struggle with. No, I'm not gonna say everything, but I struggle like other men. We all have our demons that we fight on a daily basis. Number two, when I'm in the pulpit on Sunday, my job is to preach the word of God, not what I feel, not how I feel.
Okay.
And so you have to learn how to separate the two. Because when you're in the pulpit, your job is to inspire people to believe in something bigger than you. Your job is to inspire people to believe in God, to believe in themselves, to believe in what he put on the inside of us. That's my job. My job. So in the pulpit, I'm all his. And don't get me wrong, every day I'm all his. But he gave me the gift of hip hop, which I'm so grateful for, because now I can say how justice feels.
Okay.
On Sunday, I have to make sure I'm listening to God, to make sure I'm telling them, because here's the deal. As an assistant pastor, one of the things that I've learned from my pastor is the people that I'm pastor, they're not mine. They don't belong to me. They're his. So it is my job to allow him to speak through me to his people. Now, when I'm in the studio, like I said, he gave me something that I can release that you can't release in other places. And so you have to learn how to separate the two. Because if not, then you get in the pulpit, and we all know how people listen to words that come from the pulpit. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. But then what does become a bad thing is when you take your personal business or your personal emotions, you take them into the pulpit and you preach from those. Now you're corrupting people.
Okay. And what we're gonna do throughout the soul sit down, we're gonna break down this song, each verse. You have 3 verses on it, right?
Yeah.
The meat and potatoes of your first verse is you're actually feeling some form of regret. If you would expound on that right there, form of regret that you felt.
That verse came from me losing one of my homeboys and one of my pupils, Aaron. And the reason I wrote that is because what happened was, and I'm finna tell a little bit of a personal story. What happened was I had promised him and his mom that I would always keep in touch with him, always, you know what I'm saying, be there, as moral support, as a mentor, someone to try to help steer him in the right direction. Not that he was getting in trouble or anything like that. Well, I went through my personal issues in life, and, through the course of life, as you hear me say, his step pops married my mom, should have been brothers. Right. So his step pop that had been his step pop for the longest, his mom and him got a divorce, and his step pop ended up marrying my mother.
Was this right here before you built a relationship or after? Or in the midst?
After and in the midst. We had already built our relationship while his mother and step pop were together. We had already built that meant, me being his mentor and stuff, we had already built all of that. Mm-hmm. And so then as I was going through, my rocky turbulence of my first marriage, and then what happened between his step pops, now my step pops, and his mother and everything, and then when they got together, I was uncomfortable, like, talking to him. Not because I did anything to him or he did anything to me, not the fact that his mother did anything to me. No one really did anything to me. It was just, I knew at some point in time, if him and I talked, we was gonna have to talk about that. Mm-hmm. And where I made the mistake was, kept thinking I had time until I was ready to talk about it, until I was ready to deal with whatever emotional things I was going through, right? And it didn't happen because he ended up committing suicide, and we never had that conversation.
You also made reference in the song something about you apologized to his moms. Have you actually made that initial call yet?
I did make that call. I won't get into the specifics of that call. I just, that's not what I do.
But nonetheless, you extended.
I did. Right. Because a lot of times it's good to find the problem, right? It's good to diagnose the problem. That's all well and fine. But then what are you doing about it? Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And I felt I needed to reach out to her because I didn't keep my word. Okay. She didn't owe me anything. You know what I'm saying? Like, it wasn't like she was asking me to be another father figure to him. That ain't what she asked. But I gave her my word that I'll look out for him. I gave her my word that because, in a sense, he looked up to me. He had seen some of the things I went through, and he was like, man, sometimes I just need somebody to talk to. Mm-hmm. And like I said, I'm supposed to be a preacher. I taught him in Sunday school. And so a couple of times I pull him to the side, or he'll pull me to the side and say, hey, I'm dealing with X, Y, Z. And and I would try to give him the best advice I could. But then, like I said, when all the, everything happened, all that fell by the wayside. And so the story and the message behind that, the moral of the story is, don't let stuff in life happen, to where it just keeps you from checking on people you're supposed to be checking on.
So now that you actually made the song, you let it all out at the altar, you reached out to the moms, do you feel a weight lifted?
Not really, because all that can't bring them back. And I'm not personally blaming myself for his suicide, but I will never know if anything I could have done or said to him would have changed his mind. Okay. And so I have to live with me and his mother's relationship may not ever be the same again. And I have to live with, I'll never be able to see him again. And so that's the purpose. I wasn't really trying to free myself when I wrote this. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to help myself and other people, because now I'm working with other people and I'm making sure I do my best to stay in touch with people that I probably normally wouldn't stay in touch with, right? I'm making a better effort. And so the moral of this, the whole goal of this is to encourage us. Reach out to people while you have time. If you have an issue with them, settle it now. If at all possible, if you can come to a place of reasoning, settle it now, because once you're gone or once they're gone, ain't no settling nothing. Bury me a martyr. This is for the culture. Bury me a martyr.